What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Today we're here with our brother Diallo Sumbry. Now, this brother, got some great news to share with a lot of you. Those of you who are definitely thinking about connecting back with the motherland. You're saying, I'm tired of Babylon. I want to start, going back to where our ancestors' bones were originally buried. I want to make sure I say that for some of those people. So, brother Diallo, thanks for joining on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, Diallo, talk to us a little bit about, where you come from and how you end up, brokering, a great deal with the Sierra Leone government.
Well, I was born and raised in Trenton, New Jersey. So I'm a good old Jersey boy, raised in Trenton, New Jersey. But I grew up in a Pan-African household. I went to independent African-centered schools for most of my life, for my younger education. So my parents raised their children with an identity of being and understanding what it means to be African. We were raised, again, through African-centered schools. So, I grew up knowing that Africa was 54 countries. It was a continent of 54 countries, that there were many languages and things like that. And I grew up inside of traditional African cultural arts. So, you get to that point in life where you grow up and you decide what you're going to do. And I decided to continue to do the work of my ancestors and to do the work of my family by helping to connect those of us here in the United States who want to be connected with Africa, with the motherland. So in my role as director of partnerships for AfricanAncestry.com, when we noticed that the government of Sierra Leone was giving citizenship, so it's important for me that I say that it was individual African ancestry family members who had actually gotten citizenship first. They had actually went to Sierra Leone, went through some local tour companies, and we saw an article that stated that Sierra Leone had given the citizenship. So upon investigation, we realized that everybody was using the African Ancestry test and that they were giving citizenship based on the African Ancestry test. So like a good director of partnerships, hopped on a plane, went to Sierra Leone, and began to engage the Ministry of Tourism and the Monuments and Relics, who we worked with to create this MOU, where now, if you take the AfricanAncestry.com DNA test and your maternal or paternal lineage comes back from Sierra Leone, you automatically qualify for citizenship.
All right, and that is a great step in the right direction. And so, just to recap, our brother was born right here, like the rest of you who probably watch this program, except our brothers and sisters who watch in the Caribbean and Latin America and the continent of Africa. And he, with African ancestry, and you still in that position, correct?
Yes, I am. I'm still in that position.
Okay. A lot of people, including myself, have used African ancestry. I'm actually waiting on my maternal test to come back. They say supposedly next month. Let's kind of see, how is that going to go?
Make sure you send me your kid ID and your name. Let me see if I can help you with that.
Okay, because I can definitely send that to you. I can put it in the chat. Let's say after the interview, I can get it to you.
Okay. All right.
All right. So now let me ask you a question about that. Are you now just Sierra Leone? Are you going to the other countries and starting to talk to them about the same thing? Because the main issue that a lot of Black Americans are saying is say, well, I don't know what country I come from, and some feel that, well, for us to come back, we should have an opportunity to get citizenship. So, are you working with other African countries outside of Sierra Leone?
So let me if I could take a step back in 2019. I was also the co-architect of the Year of Return. So I worked with the government of Ghana to establish that program and help facilitate it throughout 2019. At the end of 2019, African Ancestry created something that we felt would be the next step for like a Year of Return program. We created something that we also felt would be the next step for once people take their African Ancestry test. So once you've kind of gotten your identity back and that you found out where your maternal or your paternal lineage is coming from, what most people want to do after that is they want to travel there. So we created something called African Ancestry Family Reunions, and we launched it in Ghana at the end of 2019. Naturally, 2020 had everybody in the house. The pandemic hit. So we had actually reached out to Sierra Leone in 2019, and we reached out to a few other countries because it was just kind of the next step in the next step in the growth for African ancestors. Okay, now we need to start connecting people with the continent. So to answer your question, I wanted to just kind of set that up, but to answer your question, yes, ideally, we would like every country where we find ancestry from our customers to be willing to engage in the same kind of program. And we see that most people on the African continent know that African Americans have, what is it, 1.3 trillion spending power. So people see what happens when we come back, when we invest, and when we kind of begin to unite with our brothers and sisters on the continent, and not just monetarily, but our education, our resources, and just kind of our way of life too. It's one way to help Africa get beyond foreign aid.
Now you're working for African Ancestry, and I know many people have heard about it, but tell people like why they should go with African Ancestry over Ancestry and 23andMe and things like that. Why should they choose African Ancestry?
Well, if you somebody who believes in all Black everything, supporting Black-owned businesses, then African Ancestry is a woman-led and Black-owned company. It's been that way for 18 years. They're the progenitors in the DNA space. African Ancestry also has the largest database of indigenous samples, right? So what that means is that the reason why African Ancestry is the only company that can pinpoint your ancestry to modern-day country and modern-day ethnic group is because we have the largest database. We have the largest database of indigenous samples. Now, when companies come and they test your DNA, what other companies do is they take all of your DNA together and they test it. That's why you get a percentage, right? So if I told you that you were 75% African, I don't know how much that will help you, or I don't know how you would feel about that, because you could look in the mirror every day and say, well, I know I'm African. I got these cheekbones from somewhere, these lips came from somewhere, these nose came from somewhere. I kind of figured I'm African. But it doesn't help you identify where and who. African Ancestry is able to do that, again, because of our large database size. One of the things that keep people from doing DNA tests is people are afraid for companies to have their DNA. They don't know what these companies are going to do with their DNA. African Ancestry is the only company that destroys your DNA. We don't keep it. Right? So, so if you're interested in finding out who you are, meaning if you're interested in finding out your tribe, if you're interested in finding out modern day country, and we say modern day country specifically because we know Africa wasn't always carved up into these geographical boundaries that they are, we can pinpoint your ancestry directly to that tribe.
Yeah, and that's what we want to get you to say, because we haven't had anyone on from African Ancestry since we have been looking more and more into the African continent. That's good. Now if for instance, if someone, let's say, had African Ancestry, do you guys keep the records? Like, for instance, you may destroy the DNA, but let's say that person, well, I can't find my paperwork from when I got it a while back. Could they, write to you and say, hey, listen, I did a test. This is my name. Do you still have access to my certificate digitally? Do you even have that?
Yes, we could definitely look for it. 9 times out of 10, if you took the test, what we need is your kit ID. The kit ID is the unique ID that helps us identify you, because it's a private process, because it's a personal process. So when you take your test, no one knows that it's you. Throughout the company, all we do is follow the kit ID. So we can't connect your swabs with your name and address. All we know is the kit ID. So if you have a kit ID, an email address, that begins our search. And then if we can't find it that way, then we can try to get some more information from you to see if we could drill down to find your kit or a family member's kit. There's another important thing to say about the test is what African Ancestry does is test specifically your maternal or your paternal line. So through the mitochondrial DNA, African Ancestry is able to test your maternal line. Just your maternal line, which means your mother, her mother, her mother, her mother, her mother, her mother, back 500 to 2,000 years. So men can do the maternal or the paternal test. Women can only do the maternal test because women don't have the Y chromosome. Women cannot trace their father's ancestry based on how we do our tests. Only men could do that. So if your sister wanted to find out your father's ancestry, you would have to take the test. your father or his brother or any of his brother's sons, because that same Y chromosome transfers all the way down to the father's line.
Now, let me tell you, so it was interesting when I took my paternal test. Very, very interesting. I got something back that shocked me. Now, my father is not no mixed race person. Nobody in my family is on my father's side. But the country that my father's lineage went back to wasn't even in the African continent.
Where was it?
Spain.
And you were surprised?
Yes. And then I started thinking about it. I started really thinking about it. And I started talking to my father about it. And I say, hey, do y'all have any Moors in the family? Like, you heard anything about Moors? That's why I started asking a question. And he went into the long spiel about who was a Moor, who wasn't in the family, like in the past. And I didn't know where it was coming from. So is that happen a lot to people?
So I'm glad you asked that question. 93% of the times when people take our maternal test, the results come back African.
Right.
As opposed to only 67% of the time for our paternal test. Now, why is that? The DNA that we're tracing is 500 to 2,000 years back. And what happened during the transatlantic slave trade? What happened during colonization? White men were having black babies.
Right.
We know what was happening with our women and our sisters during that time with the rape and the pillage of our communities. So just because you got black skin doesn't necessarily mean that the DNA in your body and your father's DNA might not have been a European going back 500 to 2,000 years. So that data, so that was a very interesting question. And based on our data and those percentages that I just gave you, when we see that, even we thought, wow, this is interesting. Why is that? Well, we know why. We know exactly what was happening at the time during the transatlantic slave trade and colonization and times after that here in the US. So a lot of us paternally, our fathers will be black, have full black skin, et cetera. But when we trace our DNA, it might be European ancestry, and that happens quite a bit.
Wow, that's interesting. Because it even led me start studying, because I know also if it's some of it's the slave trade, but also you look at when the Moors left North Africa and when they start conquering different parts of Europe.
Exactly.
With that history, and I know they started intermingling with the women there, but it's definitely slavery. Of course, yes, we all know about plantation rape. So yeah, I thought that was quite interesting when I saw that. So like I said, I'm waiting on my mother's one, and like I said, I'll give you the kid ID, and then we'll go from there. But the popularity of African ancestry, I know Chadwick Boseman, the late Chadwick Boseman, may he rest in power. He really spoke great, of African ancestry. He was excited about it. How is it that for the company itself, since he gave that endorsement and a lot of people have been looking, is everything just going up and up for the company?
Yeah, that was definitely a pleasant surprise. So people should know that he wasn't paid to do that. Like he wasn't paid to do that. It wasn't a conversation between him and Gina Page, our president. It was something that the company discovered the next morning. So we went online and found it. But he's a dear close friend of the African Ancestry family, and you could even see his personal passion about it in that interview. When he told Charlamagne, nah, man, you took the wrong test. And then when he started to break down why he took African ancestry, okay, we knew he got it before, but we're like, wow, thank you, Chadwick, thank you. So it definitely provided a boost for the company. And I think it definitely helped other people gain some confidence. Other people gain confidence in African ancestry. What most people don't realize is most of these other ancestry DNA companies, they're owned or supported by white-owned pharmaceutical companies, right? So these are companies that God knows what they're doing with the DNA, and why they're actually supporting some of these companies. We also know that they don't do what we do. They do something totally different. They do admixture tests. They just take a swab of you and they compare all of your DNA to their databases. Neither one of them, none of these other companies have a database over 2,000 samples. So you're looking at us with a database of well over 33,000 samples, and these other companies with a database of less than 2,000, which is why they can only give you general percentages. And that's also why after a month or two or three, we find people who've taken some of these other tests, and they say, well, I got something in the mail to say my percentage changed. So now I'm no longer 45% Ghanaian. I'm actually 35% Ghanaian, and now I'm 10% Togolese. Now, if that's okay for you, no problem. You know, if finding out that information, that percentage is okay for you, then that's more power to you. But people who come to African Ancestry come because they're looking for their identity. They want to reconnect back to their people, to their ancestry. And what we find a lot of times is when people start looking up characteristics of these various ethnic groups and tribes that they connect back to, and they start looking at their own family history, you know what they find? They find similarities. Oh, okay, the Mende were like this. Okay, the Wolof, they say the Wolof are like this. Okay, the Fulahs like this. And we start seeing those similarities.
Now, let me ask you a question. Based off of, what you have seen with a lot of Black Americans taking the test, what are the top 5 African countries that you notice that Black Americans hit on more so than anywhere else?
I do not want to speculate. Like, if I would have had that question before, I probably could have pulled it. But I would say, a wild guess, I would say Nigeria is one. I would also say Cameroon, Sierra Leone, maybe Guinea-Bissau. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, what are some of the top, top countries that we find. And when you do your research and you do your history on the transatlantic slave trade and the colonization of Africa, you can see why for some of that. We get some Congo. Forgive me, I don't have that. I can't give you that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can't give you that order.
Oh, no. It was just more so like an estimate based off of like what you had just seen over the years, and that's what I'm talking about. Not really some pinpoint. I know Nigeria definitely
right
is one of them because I'm probably sure Nigeria is probably one of the top ones.
Yeah,
from what I've seen with a lot of Black Americans. But Brother Diallo, tell people just a little bit, like I said, how, if they have any questions about African ancestry, let people know, where they can go to, maybe get those questions answered and even take the test.
Well, the best thing for you to do is go to AfricanAncestry.com. All of your information will be answered. That's AfricanAncestry.com. You can order a test there. You can find out about travel. We do take African Ancestry family reunions to the various countries where we find ancestry. You can find out more about our science. You can find out more about how it works. You can find out about our privacy. You can find out about some of our other products that we have. So AfricanAncestry.com is your source. Once you take your African Ancestry test, you will become a member of our private Facebook group called the African Ancestry Online Community, where a lot of our family members share a lot of information there, and all across social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, African Ancestry.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll make sure to put that link in the pinned comment and take your African Ancestry test. Please do. Like I said, we got to discover our roots, and most of you who say certain things about you're native to this land, well, you'll find out real quick if you are or not, right? Take the test. So Diallo, thanks for joining us on the show today, brother. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.